Tam. When is it going to be over? I swear, I'm running out of alibis now. I mean, I can only be in the guest room when he's in the living room with the candlestick so many times.
I'm running out of things to cook. What about you?
Oh my God. Oh my. No, it's literally we're getting to the bare bones now. I'm peanut butter and jelly. And then I'll
fucking can of baked beans is what you get for dinner, and you're thankful for it.
Yeah, all you do is
beans these days.
All you do is put a little piece of lettuce on the plate and jazz it up a little bit. It looks like a fancy meal. There you go.
Well, we're very lucky today because we have Sarah Colonna, whom I loved for so long. I was such a big fan of Chelsea lately. I'm sure you hate this because I was on a show, Pretty Little Liars, and I'm like, if you mention that show one more time, I'm going to kill someone.
No, I don't mind it.
But when I heard that Roxy knew you, I was like, it was faster than I could get to the fridge in quarantine. So thank you so much for coming on our show. We are very grateful to have you.
Thank you.
So excited to have you, Miss Sarah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And no, I never get offended by the Chelsea Lately thing. I never get sick of it because it launched so many great fans, and they're a very loyal fan base. So I'm all for it. Wear that as a badge forever.
So good. So good. Well, Sarah, okay, tell us, how is this quarantine going for you? What is the latest, and how are you handling it? What's the deal?
I mean, it's a lot, as is everybody. I will say we're very lucky here. I have a Peloton and a treadmill. Mm-hmm. So I have an outlet. I have somewhere I can't really make an excuse not to go do that. I have something to at least sort of make me sweat and think about. But yeah, just like you guys were talking about running out of things to cook, I have 2 dishes I used to make before this. One was pasta and one was lemon chicken. And I'm trying to make a lasagna tonight. I'm not I don't even know who I am. I'm going to try to make a lasagna and it's not going to fucking go well.
My daughter said to me the other day, she said, Mom, I love it when you make me cookies, but you've never given me any that aren't burnt. I was like, girl, the fact that I'm in the freaking kitchen cooking your ass, you should be extremely grateful. I'm like, don't even. But
are you guys getting a little wacky too about food rationing? My daughter took a bite of a banana and threw the rest of it away in the garbage. I was like, hold up. I pulled that banana out. I was like, you are going to eat this whole banana. We're not throwing this perfectly fine banana that you took one bite out of away. I feel like we're in rationing. It's kind of scary.
No, it is. Well, and it's getting a little bit better when you go to the store. I mean, I feel like it depends on the day, but when it first started, I think they thought the grocery stores were going to close or something. Mm-hmm. So people are just buying everything. And so that I didn't want to hoard stuff, but then it made me panic. Do I need to buy everything? Do I need to have a case of, spaghetti noodles and dry beans? Yeah. Because that's all I'm going to be able to, I don't know. So, but it's getting I feel like it's a little calmer right now in that situation, but we'll see.
I said to Roxy that my husband has been preparing for this his whole life because he's from Arkansas. I know that's kind of where your family are from. Is that right?
Yeah, I grew up in Arkansas.
Yeah. So he's like, I'm ready to light a fire. He has his whole fridge in there with 20 cans. I got toilet paper for a month. I don't know why the accent came out. He gets very he gets very southern when these types of things happen. He's been ready for this his whole life.
Where is he from? What part?
I don't know. I don't know that much about him. He's actually not that close. This is a sad thing to say. He's not that close to his family, but it's weird because so much of his past is in who he is now. He's such a good Southern boy, and all those Southern values. When I first met him, he would always pay for everyone and open the door, and just got really good Southern roots. But he's not that close to his family. So we didn't go back and forth very much. But I feel an affinity towards that part of the US.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the Southerners, they're probably laughing at us, all of us on the, West Coast panicking. They're probably we got this. We got, a couple of sticks and some, I don't know, a tent cover and we'll be fine. They've got it figured out.
Yeah. And speaking of husbands, as we're talking about husbands, how are you and your husband dealing in quarantine? Are you guys killing each other yet?
Not yet. And we're doing pretty well, I think.
Okay.
I noticed we have a good amount of space, so that's good. That helps. I think like having a different room to walk into. But the other day I was definitely a little bit on edge. Like I walked in the living room and I was like bitching about somebody on the Nextdoor app being, rude to other people. And I was just like, why are people being rude on Nextdoor app? And he was like, what are you talking about? Like, first of all. And he just went in another room for like 3 hours and read a book. And like, I didn't even look for him. He didn't look for me. And I respected that. I was like, he's just going to go get away. And when I stop complaining about weird, nonsensical things that I don't need to, he'll come back out and it'll be safe.
So you guys are pretty like chill about that stuff. I mean, you guys have gotten it down. Like you're like not exploding each other like my husband and I.
Yeah, Roxy's like, okay, every time we speak to each other, Roxy's like, I think I'm done. Like, I think I'm out. Like, I don't know how to get out of my marriage, but I'm done.
I'm done. The quarantine has killed us.
Yeah, like, we have to actually deal with our issues. Like she said last podcast, she's like, I have to grow from this. We actually have to talk it out and I can't just run away. I'm like,
oh my God.
That's called maturity, Roxy.
I just can't escape. I can't escape it. Yeah, it really does force you to be introspective though, right? With not only yourself, but your husband too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like last night I had like one of my dishes that I figured out. It's nothing fancy. It's just some risotto from a box and some chicken that hopefully is cooked through. And I was like, I called it the quarantine risotto because I was like, this is my one thing I know how to make right now that's a little different. So last night he's like, oh, are you making quarantine risotto? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's all I know how to make. And he was like, but you called it that. I wasn't calling it that. And I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. So you just have like moments where you're like, why am I mad? And then they kind of go away. But we're actually not used to being together all the time. Like we actually live apart half the year.
Oh.
Due to work. Like he used to work in Seattle and now he works in Canada. And it's like, now it's almost like, oh, cool. We get to be together a little more, but at the same time, so we're grateful, but at the same time, we're not used to it. So there's just sort of like a balance, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the secret.
And it's all those secret behaviors that you have when you're alone that you're like, I don't want my husband to know that I put like really thick coconut oil on the heels of my feet and then put them in like wrapping, like I wrap them in saran wrap or whatever that is. Like, I don't want him to see my single like behavior. You know what I mean? But he's in my grill all the time. And the thing is like, I would like to see another face. Like that would be exciting to me. And I do love him, but I'm like, I've seen every part of your face. He asked me to braid his hair the other day. And I'm like, we are getting too close. Like this is like, it's enough. Like, I don't need to do that. And you don't need to see how bad waxing I need down there. Like we're done, you know?
Yeah. Maybe you could just like cut out a face from a magazine and just have him like wear it over his face and just pretend he's someone else for a day. Is that weird?
I mean, I do that when we have sex. I close my eyes really hard and I think about the postman. No.
Right. I mean, it's the only thing you can do sometimes when you see the same person over and over again, you know? Dying for that human interaction. I don't know when that's going to come though.
I know. It feels like it's going to be a while. It feels like I keep acting like they're just giving us worst case, but it'll be better sooner. But I think I'm just lying to myself and that's fine.
So I believe that comedy is something that connects us so much in dark times. And you're a comedian. How are you feeling when it comes to being funny right now? Because there's a sensitive spot about what you can, be funny about, obviously.
Yeah, totally. I mean, part of it's hard because I'm so used to, everyone's struggling with the work thing, obviously, but like, I had live shows that were all canceled and that's what I'm used to doing, doing these shows at clubs and connecting with people. So I really miss that, obviously. But it's a good question to ask about like how the things about what you can joke about, because obviously there's a lot of heartache in all of this, but it's the stuff like we're talking about right now that people can laugh about and relate to. Or I've been doing a thing where I give like quarantine tips. Like I'm like every 3 days, put on a pair of jeans, make sure they zip up and then go right back to your house pants. Like, just sort of, you find light, fun things that everyone can kind of relate to. And then you're not making light of the entire situation. You're just making, you've got to find humor in dark times no matter what. So I think as long as you do it tastefully and not poke fun at the tragic parts of it, then everyone needs that,
Yeah.
So do you watch the news consistently, or do you like, for your mental state, do you kind of like remove yourself from that? Are you like kind of obsessed with all the press conferences and everything that's going on, or
Do you?
I kind of stay away from the press conferences, and then I get the information after, because it's just so much. And then there's just like, people arguing with each other during it and things that you're just like, this isn't helping me. I'll read the highlights and the things I need to know afterwards. So I feel like that's made me feel a little bit better to step away from. But watching in the morning, I usually turn on the news in the morning, obviously, to sort of see what's going on. So, anything happened overnight? Is it cured? Are we good?
Right.
So I'm trying to do that, but I'm trying not to overwhelm myself. So I feel like sitting down and watching these, obviously there's important information coming out of press conferences. So I don't disagree with anyone that wants to watch them. I just feel like for me, watching a couple hours of all of that is too much. So I'd rather just find out what I need to know afterwards.
Do you feel like all this time is making you creative, or the opposite? Because Roxy and I have children, and it's just all we are doing is attending to their needs. Like that's all we do all day. And I thought, like, if I had more time, would I be creative? And then like, you obviously think that you would, but then it's, I've never been through a pandemic before. So I don't know if all your creative juices are flowing, I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah. It's like some days they are, some days I'm like, oh, I thought of this, especially relating to like when I am going to perform again, like the time, when all this really is over and we all get to go back to that stuff. I'll write down things that happened throughout the day or that I observed, like to try to be like, well, this is stuff we're going to be able to talk about for a while after this. Like I said, the parts that we find humor in. So I try to kind of keep note of that sort of stuff. And there's days that I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get to a proposal on another book, because why not? I have the time. And then I don't. And someone said it really well to me. They were like, it was actually my agent, which really caught me off guard. But he was like, this is like a forced time out for everybody. So you don't have to force yourself to feel super productive during it. If you're not, it's okay. You know? Yeah. So I'm sort of finding that balance, because for me, I also obviously need to feel creative. And doing things like this actually helps me, like doing podcasts and just connecting with people and feeling like I'm putting some kind of content out there that maybe entertains people and, like you guys do. So that kind of helps too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always nice I know weekly I get to see Taman's face. So I'm like, it's a person outside of my house. And now you, Sarah.
Yes.
So what I do is I put my top on, and then like at the bottom, I like literally, I was like, should I just be in underwear just to fuck with everyone? Because like no one can see me.
No one knows.
I could be in like some kind of granny panties. Like you guys would never know.
Or you could be in like full bondage gear.
Oh, I totally could. I could be in like leather and lace, like right down here.
Just high heel boots.
I mean, I've got time just my tracks on, but it's funny because I don't think I've changed. I just wear the same thing every day, and I just put it in the corner until it smells so bad that I'm like, you know what? We should probably. That's why everyone's like, what is that smell? But it's like, you don't have to impress anyone. I'm always putting makeup on for you guys through Zoom, but that's about it. Like yours is as good as it's going to get, guys. Okay? Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I know. Go ahead. Sorry.
My husband was like, oh, do you have a Zoom today? Because I had mascara on. And I'm like, yeah, I do. Okay, you're welcome.
It was like, you are dressed up, girl.
Yeah. Balls to the wall. Let's go.
I love it. Oh, I love it. Well, I'm a Southern girl too. I grew up in Dallas.
Yeehaw.
So yeah, it's great. But I also like, when I think about home, there are like certain things I miss, little Southern traditions and things like that. What do you miss the most about the South?
I think the community of it, like you feel like I grew up in a really small town called Farmington in Arkansas. That's like right outside of Fayetteville. And then I went to college at the U of A, which is in Fayetteville. And I, when you go, even when I've taken like my husband back there, I mean, he's from a small town in Canada, so he's pretty used to it. But if you take someone else that's never really been to a small town there and you're driving down the road on that, like basically a dirt road, and someone waves at you and you're like, you wave. And I had a friend who was with me one time and she's like, do you know that person? And I'm like, no, we just wave here. We just wave at people.
I know, it's so great.
We wave at strangers.
So
it's
nice.
Yeah.
It's very welcoming, you know? It's like a very warm sense of community there.
Yeah.
We're a lot more isolated here, you know?
We're more isolated. I feel like I now know one of my neighbors pretty well here, but for the most part, everywhere I've lived here, I never really knew my neighbors that well. And in Arkansas, you know your neighbor, and if their dog got out, you brought their dog over, or they baked bread, they brought the bread over. So that kind of like sense of that is nice. But now I kind of feel like people are starting to do that because they don't have anyone else to talk to.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Your mom was a secretary in a funeral home. Is that right?
Yeah, she still is.
Okay. So that scares. So Roxy and I have this big fear of death. Like we've just always had, since I was a little girl, I was always freaked out that I was going to die and what happens after you die. So what was it like being a young girl growing up with a mom who worked at a funeral home? Like, what was your mom like as a person? Are you close to her?
Yeah, we're really close. We're really close. She's still working, which I hate, but you know, it's a funeral home, so they have to stay open right now. Like, but
people are still going to die.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's funny because I think about death a lot too. I don't know if it's a fear or just because of the fact that I've been around it my whole life, but it did give me like, and my mom used to come home from work when I was little and I'd be like, how was work? And she'd be like, oh, we were slammed. And I'm like, oh, so everyone's dead. Like it's not, it's not like waiting tables where it's awesome to be slammed. I'm like, so the bodies are just like, So that kind of gave me like this outlook of like, okay, so I guess I just understand that people die at all the time that we don't hear about at an alarming rate. And it's strange. It's like my mom is always very concerned about dying, but not in the sense of like, because she works at a funeral home, I think, but I don't know. It's because she's not dying, but she's just like, her mom had cancer. So she's like, cancer's going to get me. And she's just real blunt about it.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, I don't think that's how it works. But I guess because she works in that atmosphere, she just talks very bluntly about death and when it's going to hit her.
I mean, I've never seen a dead body. So it's like, what is it like? Have you seen many dead bodies?
I saw one once. It was very, it was
waxy, right?
Yeah. It was so weird. It was like, I was there. I used to have to go there after school because my mom, she was a single mom most of my, like when I was super young. So I went there after school to wait for her to get off work. And I was supposed to, if they came by and closed this door from this room that I was in where I could watch TV, if they came by and closed the door, that meant like, don't open the door because they're doing something, right? Well, I had to go to the bathroom and I kind of forgot. So I opened up the door and there's just a body in a casket fully.
Oh my gosh.
They were like moving her into the
oh my gosh.
thing. And I was like, okay, never open a door when told not to open a door.
I can't.
Again. Yeah, I can't.
Well, I can relate to you about the funeral home, like in a small town, because my cousins in Lufkin, Texas, like in the deep, deep east side of Texas, owned a funeral home. So I remember and when you own a funeral home in a small town in the South, you are living high on the hog. I mean, that is like a really good job, But it's funny. I remember, also going to that funeral home and death, maybe that's part of like why I have a fear of death, but like, now, are you afraid of dying? Like, is that something that's been like ingrained in you because of like, growing up and like going to the funeral home and stuff?
Yeah, I'm afraid of getting murdered. Like I'm convinced I'll get murdered. And I don't really think that comes from, I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah. And like, why you? Do you know what I mean? Like my husband's always like, why you? Like, why are you the person who's going to get murdered?
Why do you think you're so special?
Yeah. Like, I'm like, the plane's going to go down. He's like, why is the plane going to go down for you? I'm like, oh, you're probably right. Like, I think I'm too good. Like, that's why it's going to choose me.
That's so funny. Yeah. I have like, I don't know. It's like, I have a fear of someone like breaking in and stabbing me. So I don't know where that comes from. It's not great.
Well, clearly you didn't get murdered making your way to Hollywood from Arkansas, thank God. So how did you make that jump from Arkansas to Hollywood?
It was interesting. It was I think ignorance is bliss. I was 21 and I had just graduated college. So I moved with sort of, just a dream, and I didn't really know how it was going to shake out. I was lucky for a little transition. My dad lives actually in Orange County, or he did at the time. Now, and now he's in Palm Desert. But so my dad lived there with my stepmom, and so I had someone to, visit, to see, to feel like I wasn't completely alone. And I stayed with them for a couple of months to save money to move up to Los Angeles and get a apartment and stuff. So I had a little bit of a landing pad in a way, which really helped.
Okay.
But then once I had a 1-bedroom apartment and was just living up here, I just didn't know what I was doing. I just figured it out as I went.
I came from Australia to Los Angeles at 21 with 2 suitcases as well. And you just have a dream, right? And you just don't go back. But I was telling Roxy, we had an interview with Kristen Chenoweth, and I told her that that I needed a BlackBerry. So do you remember this? Yes. So I asked, this guy who clearly was not straight, he was like, "Can I massage your feet and I'll get you a BlackBerry?" And I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, am I a hooker? Is this if he's not straight? And so I let him give me a massage for a BlackBerry, and I got a BlackBerry because I was like, you know what? You just got to do what you got to do when you're 21 years old.
I mean, that's a good first job.
No, it's a good first job.
I mean, it was just like a foot massage or a regular?
Yeah, it was like a foot massage.
Oh yeah, you won that one. That's just good business, is what that is.
I thought so. I was trying to be savvy. What was your first survival job that obviously wasn't mine?
Well, I used to give massages for. No, I'm just kidding.
But they went all. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Just waiting tables was my first job out here.
Were you good at it?
I was mediocre. I was okay at waiting tables. I was definitely a better bartender when I finally got moved up to bartender. Yeah, because I could drink, and also I was fast. I made drinks really fast. I made sure nobody was ever empty. I made strong drinks. I was a really good bartender, and I didn't have to I know that people think that bartenders stand and chat with you, but when they're busy, they really don't. We're so. And if it wasn't busy, I'd just act busy because I didn't want to talk to anyone. So I was definitely better at bartending because I didn't have to, waiting tables, you have to kiss so much ass when people are being rude to you. And with bartending, you can just be like, all right, well, I guess you just won't get a drink then, and walk away. Yeah. So that's more suited for my personality.
Ah, nice. So when did you know, doing all these jobs and everything, when did you know you wanted to be a comedian?
I moved out here hoping to be. I moved out here, I had studied acting in college, and that's what I came out to do because we didn't have a comedy club in Fayetteville at the time. So I didn't even, I knew I wanted to do it, but I hadn't ever gotten a chance to. But I knew I always wanted to do it. So I just started, I started taking different classes. I took an improv class, and that's actually where I met Chelsea Handler. So and then cool. And she wanted to do stand up too. And she hadn't done it yet either. We were probably 23, 24 by then. And so we kind of started doing open mics together. So I kind of found a comedy buddy, which I think was really helpful because there would be times where I'd be like, no, I'm not going to go to some coffee shop and tell jokes because that sounds awful. But she would be like, no, that's what we have to do. And I'd go, okay, I guess that's how it works then. And I sort of stumbled my way around through that. So I'd always wanted to, I just wasn't sure how to. And again, I guess ignorance being bliss, I just sort of did what I, saw everyone else doing. And then you start meeting other comics and finding about other places to perform that maybe you can get more stage time or there's a better audience and things like that. Because none of it's comedy clubs yet when you're fresh and new. It's all, little places around town that are letting you perform.
Roxy and I are, Roxy's in the Groundlings right now, and I'm in UCB. And I just think improv teaches you so much about life in so many ways. You find that game that they all talk about, and then you play on that. And that's kind of just comedy definitely gives another version of what life is and just connection with people. But it's interesting because I've been around comedians for quite a while recently. My husband's also sort of one. I feel like comedians can cover up some sense of sadness sometimes. And it's almost like that funny is because they have other things that they're trying to get out. Do you feel that way with comedians? Because there is a lot of depression that comes with comedy.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I'd like to say no, because there's times that I'm like, well, I don't really feel like I'm from that place. I mean,
Yeah.
I have, we all have our moments.
We all have, yeah.
But then I do know so many, comedians who have a lot of mental or emotional issues, and most of them are pretty open about it. I knew Brody Stevens really well, who, I don't know if you guys knew him, but he committed suicide, and it was a really wonderful, lovely guy, but just struggled with mental issues. So it is there for sure, and it's not made up, and I just don't, I'm not sure why. I just think that people who have sort of a dark mind sometimes do turn to comedy to relieve that. Not everyone, but some, obviously. I definitely find humor in moments when I probably shouldn't, but
Right.
but that's what gets me out of it. I don't, like I said, like, speaking of what's going on now, I'm not going to make jokes about awful things that are happening, but in my own life, if something throws me off, sometimes I'll just try to find something funny about it. So that's there, but that the side that you're talking about, like the darkness for some people, it's definitely real, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why it's so prevalent, but it is in a lot of artists too, right?
Right.
Musicians and actors, and so I think just creative types tend to have more. This is their outlet. This is where they go as they become creative people.
So who inspires you in stand up, and like, who are some of the up and comers too that you're really liking right now? I don't know if you've ever seen like Ellen DeGeneres' stand up.
She's so great. Oh my gosh.
And I think I was glad she did a special recently, because I think a lot of people now know her as this talk show host and don't even kind of realize, like, I used to watch her do stand up, just like clip after clip, because she just has that fun, that great delivery. So, conversational. Kathy Griffin the same way. I mean, that girl, I remember the first time I watched her perform and I was like, she is nonstop. Like, just her brain just goes, and she would tell a story and then she has these great inflections and would go to it. And I love that kind of stuff. But there's definitely some good comedians up and coming that I've worked with, like this girl, Mary Radzinski, who she opens for me a lot. I met her in Philadelphia and she was opening for me there. So then I bring her wherever I can now. So I definitely get to see fun people when I'm out on the road like that.
Last night, I watched, and I so needed it because I was in such a foul mood. I must have been PMSing or just stuck in quarantine with my husband for 4 weeks and children. It could just be that. But she did Quarter Life Crisis. Do you know who that is?
Oh yeah, Taylor Tomlinson.
Yeah.
She's so funny, and her set is so tight, which is such a stand-up word. So it's so polished and tight for being that young that I was actually so impressed, because I watch a lot of those stand-up because we're doing it right now, Roxy and I, just to see like what I enjoy and what I don't. And it's just like her timing is off the charts. Like she's one to watch for sure.
She really is. She's super funny. I really liked that special too. I saw it and it was so good. She's funny.
Yeah. So how do you write a set? Like, how does that go down? Like, how, from nuts to bolts, like how do you create a stand-up set?
For me, which will be really tricky right now, is I find I kind of write from stage. I mean, I have the general idea, but I do storytelling really for, I'm not like joke, which, I mean, I think most comedians at this point that you see are doing a lot of that same style, more of like a little bit longer of a story with a lot of laughs in it with a payoff, but so I'll sort of start working something out like that on stage. And to me, it's like, now that I have a really good hour, I can sneak in kind of some new stuff and test it out while still making sure that I'm giving a really good show. And then if that thing I'm testing out isn't working, I can either mark it for later or abandon it completely because never mind, that was only funny in my head or whatever. But it's definitely like working it out in front of audiences for me is the best way to go because it's the only real answer. Because when you can think something is working in your head, and it's very different when it's live.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny. Tammin mentioned that we both do improv, and Tammin and I have talked about this and how scary it is to go up there and you are like, oh my God, you're like shitting bricks because you're like, if I've really fucked this one up, like that's it. You get so embarrassed. And I feel like I bombed so many times when I've been up there, like trying, practicing improv. Have you ever bombed on stage? Do you remember a moment that you bombed on stage?
Oh yeah. I mean, that just made my armpits sweat to think about. Oh yeah. I'd say I had definitely I was pretty new to it. And I had I think I had 10 minutes tops, ready to go, which is kind of when you start doing it and you're building your set, especially in LA, that's really all the time you get on stage anyway. You don't get 30 minutes to just go, some new person just trying stuff out. So I had a good 10-minute set for this showcase that I was supposed to do for the Montreal Comedy Festival. And I guess that it was supposed to be 15 minutes. Nobody told me. I was going up before this is how long this was. Drew Carey used to do this headlining show at the Improv. And it was when he was on Whose Line Is It Anyway? So it was packed every time he was there and for people to see him because he had all these big celebrity guests. It was this whole big thing. I think it was Whose Line. I don't know. Anyway, it was something that he was always doing. And so I went on stage before Drew Carey in front of nothing but industry and a bunch of his fans. And I ate shit so bad. And I didn't know, the whole set that I had worked out had been doing so well, but it was just this, that's the weird thing is sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. But in this case, since I was new, I didn't know how to handle and move on to something else, right? I didn't have anything else. That was it. And so I did my 10 minutes and then I just said thank you and I got off stage and I still had 5 minutes left. And so
God.
The poor MC that night, I wish to God I knew who it was so I could find that person and give him a fucking money or cookies or something.
Or a blowjob.
Or a foot massage and a BlackBerry.
Or a BlackBerry.
I was
I won. Okay, I won.
Yeah. I mean, that guy, he was in the bar because he didn't need to be there yet. So then there was just nobody on stage for a couple minutes until he was alerted that I had gotten off stage early and he ran out there and I just went in the bathroom and cried. I mean, it was...
But how do you keep going? How do you keep going? How do you go back on set after that happens? And that's I think about that in life in general with any business you start or career or anything creative. It's what drives us? Because I know Roxy and I are like this too. It's when you fail, what is it in us that just wants to eat shit even more that we just keep going back?
No, I don't know. I honestly there was definitely a couple of weeks of me not getting on stage or even thinking that I ever could again. But and then I just talked to other friends and I was just other comedians and they were just it's just part of it. I mean, yours was probably the worst case scenario. And as far as I had been performing in front of, people in an industry that didn't even know me yet and that were probably never going to, look me up again. But I think they probably forgot about me way before I forgot about what happened, so if I saw them again, it would probably be new or to them because they probably just stopped paying attention. And then, you know what, a few years later, I got to go to the Montreal Comedy Festival as one of Variety's 10 comics to watch. And I was all right, it's all fine now. It comes back. I'm glad I'm glad I kept going through it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, you appeared as a regular on Chelsea Handler. And it's funny because it is such a cutthroat business. And you guys are both comedians. Did you ever feel any sort of competition with Chelsea or was it always very amicable?
It was always amicable. I just think the thing that was hard for me with the show, really, the only thing that was hard with her was when she first got it, they didn't have 3 comics a night. It was a comic and then an Us Weekly correspondent and then Scott Baio. Like, so they would have a random
Yeah.
and,
wild card.
yeah. So the comics that they were having on, I mean, I'd been working at that point for a while, but like the comics that they were having on were obviously bigger names than I was at that point. And so it was kind of like, oh, that's a bummer. She has a show and I can't be on it. But I was so happy for her. I was like, it'll be fine. And then after a year, they decided, or several months or something, they were like, this works better with comics, like all comics. So then it got a bigger rotation of people, and they wanted to introduce comics that people didn't know as well. So, you know, she gave them obviously names of people, and the talent booker would go see us perform, and she still wasn't to the point where she could just be like, put this person on, you know, because it was still kind of a new show for E too. So, but anyway, that's the hard part was the point that she could book me, and I got on the show. I just remember all day thinking, oh no, what if I blow this for my friend? You know, like, she gave me an opportunity, and if I suck, she can't do anything about it. They'll be like, sorry, she can't come back on. So I was just grateful that it went well. And then it went so well that I ended up becoming a regular. And then they actually hired me to write after like about a year of that too. So I ended up,
Explain to people what a typical show like that consists of. Like, what's the day in a life? Is it an entire week before the live performance? Like, because it was every day, right? I mean, I watched it religiously, but it was so long ago. It was every day. So, do they rehearse the jokes? Are you riffing? You know, tell us what it looks like.
Yeah, a lot of riffing. And we were like live to tape. So that meaning it was like on, you know, for your audience, like it was on, like we would tape it at 3:30 and then it was airing that night. And, you know, the topics needed to be daily. They couldn't be old. So it was starting in the morning and everybody pitching topics and ideas and scouring, you know, the news, but not like we weren't doing serious news. So like finding the most random story you could, or obviously since it was it was a lot of celebrity topics. So it was like, you get up, you'd first go into your office and like scour the internet for your pitches of topics, and then go into the writer's room, and then you would pitch the topics. And then once if a topic that Chelsea connected with, you know, because there'd be a lot of them, but we would usually do like 5 or 6. So it was like, okay, now everyone pitch topics, and then everyone pitch jokes on these topics, and then we'll write them up. And you would kind of be assigned, like if they picked your topic, you'd be assigned to, and you grab jokes from everyone in the room and put them all down and then hand them to Chelsea. And then, you know, and she'd pick, it was like, people always asked if it was off the cuff, and you're like, it really was. The round table was off. There was no rehearsal because the comics just came on, and then they had jokes prepared. And usually the comics that were coming on would have like 2 hours maybe to come up with the jokes by the time we sent everything out. So you'd go on there and you'd have a joke prepared, or you'd have things prepared for these topics, but you didn't know what the other people were going to say. So if someone either said something similar or threw you off, or if you thought of something else because of something they said. So that's why there was so much riffing on that show. Like that was the fun part of it too, is if you try to stick too much to the script, it actually would show, and it actually didn't go over well, because it was definitely more of a vibe of like playing off of each other. And that's what Chelsea, that's where she shined too. She was so good at just being like, you know, thinking of something off the cuff. So she'd take jokes that we wrote, and then sometimes she'd do all of them, and sometimes she wouldn't do any of them, and sometimes she'd do half of them. You know, it just depended on what she came up with on her own. And she always came up with a lot on her own too.
It seems like, it would be a really fun kind of work environment and place to work. And just being with Chelsea too. What was the funniest thing that she ever did in front of you?
Oh God. I mean,
I watch her Insta stories and I'm like, oh my God, she's so freaking funny, you know?
I mean, I think she recently skied down a mountain with
joint in one hand and
no pants on. So things like that. I can't really trying to think, but she was, you know, she is. People were always like, is she like what she, you know, is she the same as she is? Yeah, she's the same. Like she's just silly and fun, and you know, but then a hard worker. So things were sometimes it wasn't like, it's not like work wasn't all fun and games by any means. It was like you had to get a show done. So we're all on a, you know, on a schedule and a regimen that like couldn't they had there's no wiggle room for it.
Yeah.
Do you ever, I mean, I feel like we say, and we do believe it to some extent, that we want our friends and our female counterparts to succeed. But was there ever a pang of like, I wish I had my own show? And because you're so talented, and isn't that the ultimate?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there was ever a pang, to be honest. It was more like, because maybe at first it's I don't know, I wish I could say for sure that I did or didn't. But I won't pretend to like be able to connect with like how I felt then. But what did happen from that show is, because it focused so much on comedians and it introduced so many comedians, we all got our own audiences out of it, and they have stayed and they've been good, and they bought my books when I wrote my books, and they watched my Netflix show that I was just on, and they like they are really hardcore fans. And so I've always been a little bit more of like, I want to do like television acting or movie acting, and then in like a scripted way, I've written scripts for myself for television. So I think I had a different goal in mind for myself, where I didn't, maybe if I was like, all I wanted to be was a talk show host, it would be not all, as in that's a bad thing. I just meant if that's all I wanted personally, then it probably would have been a little more difficult. But since I sort of had a different goal, I was like, oh, I have an opportunity to be on TV, write my own jokes for myself on a round table, and then flex my, my writing skills by writing for someone I actually know. So I kind of got to do best of all of it.
A little bit of all of it. Yeah. Did you feel like up and coming that you felt any of the other female comedians, jealous, or that they wanted to kind of, maybe not let your light shine as much? Did you feel any of that sort of competition, or not as much?
Not as much in that environment. I didn't feel it, but I've seen it. I won't pretend it's not out there, and I wish it wasn't, but I've definitely seen people like that, and I just don't have time for it. Like I definitely am a believer in there's plenty of room for all of us in this. So I think if you set your own goals and stuff, that really helps you not be, so focused on what someone else is doing. Because it's like, well, that's okay. And to me, sometimes if I would see someone get something from the show before, I ended up like selling a show off of a book that I wrote, and all these, it didn't end up getting made, but I got to write a script, and like even to sell a pilot is hard enough, So I got things like that. But if I saw someone do it before me, I really felt like it helped me go, oh, it can happen.
Right.
Like I looked at it more like, oh, it's possible. Like, okay, well, she's okay. Well, she wasn't fucking bartending with me last week. So we're gonna like,
anything's possible.
Anything's possible. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It almost helped me, like inspired me to be like, don't give up. It's people are getting things around you. That means it's coming,
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So let's talk about boys, and let's talk about boys, baby. So
Yes.
Ross Matthews introduced you to your husband, John.
Yes.
How did that go down? Was it love at first sight? Was it lust at first sight? Was it sex at first sight?
Well,
all three?
When I finally met him, it was definitely sex at first sight.
I love it. You always have to test drive the car. You always have to test drive the car.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's no, to me, I'm like, to each his own, but to me, I'm like, I'm not waiting to find out what's going on down there.
Roxy and I did that.
We did
first
that.
Up.
You got to.
You have to.
So my husband plays football. So when he was playing for the Seahawks, he played there for 10 years. That's when Ross Matthews is a huge Seahawks fan. And he was at a game, and he was on the sidelines, and John recognized him because John used to watch Chelsea lately, which is also just kind of funny. And he went up to Ross and was like, hey man, big fan. Can you introduce me to Sarah Colonna? I have a huge crush on her. And Ross texted me, and he's like, oh my God, John Ryan, he's the punter for the Seahawks. He's totally hot. He just asked about you. He's going to tweet you. I think you should, don't ignore it. And he was like, for what it's worth, I've never heard anything bad about him. But because I was like, ew, gross, a creepy athlete hitting on me. Like, let's not, And then he tweeted me, and then I kind of like Googled him. I checked it out. I don't know. We started flirting, and immediately I was like, oh, this guy's got like a sense of humor. I had totally stereotyped him in my head before I even gave him a chance. And I was like, he's great. And he's hot, by the way. So great. So we kind of started flirting, and then it just kept escalating. And then I didn't actually meet him face to face for like 2 months, because the week we started talking, he went to the Super Bowl. So yeah,
kind of busy.
Yeah. He was like, he played that card. He was like, I'd love to take you out Sunday, but I'm kind of busy. I was like, okay. So we didn't end up meeting until he was done, and he came out to Los Angeles, and he was in Orange County with his family. He took them all to Disneyland after he won the Super Bowl, like just all these great things. And then he took an Uber up to Los Angeles and took me on a date, and we had sex, and then we got married.
Love it, as it should be.
Yeah.
So what was it about him that sort of first attracted you to him?
It was definitely his sense of humor. It caught me off guard. Yeah.
Sure it was. Sure it was.
Yeah. Well,
It was those tack buns.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely he looked nice in a uniform. That was for sure too. That helped. But when we were actually like tweeting and then moved on to direct messaging and then texting, as the kids do these days, I definitely was like, oh, this guy's got a sense of humor. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He's not, obviously he has played, I was like, he's played professional sports at that point, it was, several years. And so I knew he had obviously a drive and a thing that he was good at, and obviously couldn't be lazy, which I had, dated a few lazy people in my past. So that was a turn on too, to be like, this guy's got shit down and he doesn't seem to need anything from me. So let's see how this goes.
How do you keep that sexy alive, especially in quarantine?
I mean, he has a really nice ass. It helps,
There we go. That's the reason.
I mean, does the guy, so I dated a football player a long time ago, and he was like, so like he had those tight buns, but he was like 28 years old. Do those buns change as we get older? Like how does they,
no,
they always stay because they're football buns. Like they
always stay.
Yeah. They have so much muscle in there.
There's so much muscle, and he's still playing. So he's got to really, he works out like crazy. So I just think, that helps. I mean, God knows what's going to happen to my body during this quarantine, but his will still look good. So.
I know. Have you been working out during quarantine, like with him, or are you like more chill about that?
No, I do. I think I've gone up there. We go up there like 6 days a week. I mean, up there is like, we have this room above our garage that we turned into a gym for this. And he goes, and I mean, he's definitely doing longer, harder workouts than I am, but it helps me kind of not be lazy, because I see him, get up to get ready to go upstairs and work out. And I'm like, well, I guess I have nothing else to do. I better go with him. So it kind of helps actually motivate me a little bit.
I actually relate to you on this point that you had said that you had never wanted kids, right?
Yeah, no.
So I was totally in your boat as well. Then we got a surprise, and it's been an amazing. Then I got knocked up.
The pull-up method doesn't work, by the way. FYI, all the listeners.
Doesn't work. And I also I guess I test drove the car a little too hard, but did you know your whole life that you never wanted kids, or was it something that you that revealed itself to you like later on?
The last time I remember thinking about it was that I always knew that I never did. I just never had a desire. I don't know what it is. Luckily, neither did John, and he's 7 years younger than me, by the way. So
love it.
We also are on no birth control, and I assume that it's fine. But I'm
no, it's not. It's not fine. I have 2 kids. I have 2 kids. The second kid, I was like trying for a second kid. I don't know why. You'd think I would have learned my lesson the first time, but I was like, we need it in pairs. So I tried for the second one, then we kept having these miscarriages. And then we were like, you know what? The doctor was like, don't try. So I had sex on my period with protection, and we had her. So I'm telling you, your birth control, you never know. You never know.
You never know.
That's true. I guess you never know. Especially he's got like 38-year-old athlete sperm. I should probably be dodging
that. That's strong sperm. That's some strong sperm.
I don't understand that show and Roxy and I were talking about it, where they're like, "Oh, I didn't know I was pregnant. I went to the bathroom and the baby came out." I'm like,
Oh my God.
how are you? Is your baby the size of your fist? Like, how do you not know? Is it the size of a burger? Like, do you
That was my favorite show. I missed
love
that
that
show. Oh my-
Yeah.
well, the best part was like the episodes were just named like wherever the baby came out. So it was like one girl ended up giving birth when she was out on a boat. So it was like this episode, baby on a boat, and there was like baby in the bathroom,
Gas
baby.
station baby.
Yeah, exactly. I was like,
Baby on the sideway of the yeah.
I was like, how do I get that writing job where I just say, oh, this is the name of the program.
Freeway baby.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh my God, I love it.
I know.
So do you think that women in general, I know this is like such a thing that we always talk about, Tammin and I, but do you think that as women, we're forced to choose between a family and a career? Like, is that like a thing?
I mean, I think in a lot of ways in practice, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, in a lot of ways, in a practical way you are, because I don't know that I would have been able to continue doing like stand up and all, you know, the ways that I did had I had a kid.
Right.
But at the same time, I see people do it super successfully. But I think sometimes they, you know, choose to wait a certain amount of time and then have the baby when they're in a better position to where they know they can go back to work, right? If you're just starting out, then maybe you're like, oh, what if I take this time off? So I think in some ways you are like in an unfair way, you're forced to think about it. But I feel like more and more now people are making the decision more rationally and like, you know, other than the two of you just have surprise babies all the time.
Yeah. Didn't know I was pregnant.
McDonald's baby.
I had 10, like Sarah, I had 10-pound babies. I had two 10-pound babies.
Two 10-pounders.
Which is insane. Oh my God. Yeah. So like, thank God not out of my vagina, or my husband would be much more unhappy in this quarantine. He'd be like, great, I'm quarantined and you had two 10-pound babies. So I'm glad I didn't. But it's yeah, I feel like my career and Roxy's career is so important to each other. And it's hard to juggle it. You know, you never feel like you're not giving each as much attention as it could get. And you always feel guilty. So we're like perpetually feeling like we've missed the mark on both.
I know. Well, you haven't. And that's the thing is like, I think it's just in the unfair way. It's like, we just put that pressure on ourselves and then society does too. And, you know, well, if you're doing this, then what's happening with your kid? Like the kid's fine. I'm here. My husband's doing that, you know, whatever. People figure it out. But it's like people's perceptions are almost what makes you feel like you have to choose between the two. But I don't think you do, because you can do both. You just have to do it, you know, your way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it would be kind of fun if you're up for it, Sarah, to play a game with us. A little game called Never Have I Ever Quarantine Edition.
Okay.
We like to play this with our guests, and I'll let Tammin have the first go.
Okay. Never have I ever wanted to kill my husband and bury him in quarantine.
Maybe just once last night. Yeah, maybe just once. Yeah, maybe just one time.
When he talked about your cooking.
Yeah.
Is that all you got?
Even though he basically just repeated what I said, but yeah, I still wanted to sort of kill him. He was still apologizing this morning, by the way. He's like, and I'm like, no, I understand. And also, I did just check this morning, and my period tracker app says I have 3 days. So that also.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. You're like in the hot zone right now. It's a hot zone.
Yeah. So like, don't cross me.
Yeah, don't mess.
Last time I had PMS, I punched a wall, not even kidding. And my whole hand was like totally bruised. And then the next day I got my period and I was like totally fine. And I was like, do I have a mental disorder or is this normal? I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah. No, it's just it's a menstrual disorder, I guess.
Yeah,
Right.
Nothing you can do about it.
Okay. Never have I ever stayed in the same underwear for more than 2 days during quarantine.
No, I haven't done that yet.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a chance.
Okay.
There's a chance.
There's a chance.
Mostly because I'm making an effort to shower every day. So
Wow, you're showering every day?
So far,
Wow,
sometimes
that's
it's
good.
just a quick rinse.
Well,
Yeah.
her husband has good buns, Roxy. Of course,
I
she's
know,
showering
she-
every day. I'd be showering 3 times a day just in case that
Tight
crosses.
buns. I
I'd be
know.
like, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Oh my God. I love it. I love it.
Okay, never have I ever stopped shaving my armpits or pubic hairs in quarantine.
Oh, the pubic hair it's up for
One
grabs.
long strand.
Yeah, it is. I was like, I texted some of my girlfriends the other day and I was like, I have never regretted not getting laser hair removal more than I did right now. Like,
Yeah.
it is. And I'm not going to start shaving it because I feel like that's just going to make it worse when I finally
Yeah.
get to get waxed
Oh,
again. So
Yes.
it's like full 70s going.
It's okay. You're bringing back the old. You're bringing back like vintage now, It's great.
Exactly.
Right. Vintage hair. Vintage pubic hair.
Roxy, are you shaving your pubic hair?
So I actually had laser done like
Well, there's
way
none
back
there.
when. So it's but there's you get the little strays still that like to pop up and say hi,
I
and
know
you're
a lot about you. You know that?
yeah, it's true. It's true. You've basically seen it all and heard it all.
I found a gray the other day and I was like, my life is officially over. I'm stuck in quarantine. I found a gray long hair in my vagina. So you know what? I think this is it. I think I should just give up and call it a day.
May I suggest not looking that closely? That's what I do. I have no idea. I don't
What's
want
going on?
to regret. Yeah, I'm just never going to look down there and find out. And
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
You can just have the lights off during sex. It's easy,
Denial works.
Okay, never have I ever eaten 2 dinners in one day during quarantine.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I had we ordered some Italian takeout last Saturday that was so good that and we were going to split like something as an entree, and I ended up eating both of those as my entree, and he didn't get any of the appetizer. So
Yeah.
I had 2 that night.
It's okay. You're doing him a favor. You're keeping him in shape for the season,
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
There you go. I think you're very giving. You're very giving.
You don't want he doesn't want to have sagging buns. He needs to keep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You're keeping them tight and hot.
Okay. Well, you said you didn't change your underwear, so you do change your underwear, which is really wonderful of you. Never have I ever, because I've done this. Never have I ever woke up in the same clothes and then gone to bed in the same clothes as I woke up in the same day.
I did that on a Sunday. I woke up in some PJs and I didn't get out of them. So, and then
I mean, that's like a badge of honor during the quarantine.
yeah. And I got drunk in them too. I had mimosas all day.
Yes.
A good Sunday.
That's the way to pass the time too. I've noticed I'm drinking a lot more during quarantine.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
You get
It's
bored.
Yeah, it's kind of like we try to push every day. Every day we're like, let's not have a drink until 5.
Yeah.
Except
AM or
on
PM.
Sundays. Yeah.
I stopped drinking. Not that I have a big drink. I'm not a big drinker, but I stopped drinking just before quarantine on January 1st because I'm like, this is the year I'm not going to drink. I do regret it and I've had not a drink. Not that I have a problem, but I was just like, it doesn't help my PMS personality or the fact that I punch walls often.
Right.
So I was like, maybe I shouldn't drink. But now I'm like, should I drink? Maybe I should just drink.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you just, I don't know. I would say if you had a problem, that's where you fit.
No.
Don't have one. But if you're feeling good, then I would say, I'm not going to give you, I shouldn't give advice on this.
I mean, I'm high. I'm high every day, but I'm not.
I'm so naughty. I'm like, come on, Tam, just a little tequila to ease your way in.
I don't even know if I've known you for a good couple of years. I don't even know when I talk to you at night if you've ever not had if you ever haven't had a tipple. She's the best. Roxy's the best drinker because she only does it for fun, and those are the best drinkers to be around. She does never do it because if she's upset, when you go for a drink, she only does it when she's happy or having fun. So she's always happy, and I'm
That's good.
that is the best. That is the best person to be around.
I mean, I have my talents. Oh, Sarah, you're amazing. Oh my God, this has been so much fun.
Thank
So
you for
fun,
coming on our
Sarah.
podcast. Thank you.
I feel like I was like out
Yes.
hanging out with somebody. Like it makes me so happy. So
Yay.
thanks for having me.
Well, count us as girlfriends now because you're one of ours.
Yes,
Done.
if we ever get out of the
Yes.
computer screen,
Yeah.
We're here.
please come back. It's funny because like all these guests we're getting, they're like, sure, we'll do it. I'm like, because you have nothing else to do. This is your best option. They're like, all of us, you know, sometimes you go through the manager or the publicist, but they're now just saying yes because I'm like, because you're fucking stuck. That's why.
Can't leave. Can't go anywhere.
And then they can't say no because they can't be like, I'm so sorry. I'm just so busy. Like I've got so much on the schedule. I'm like, bullshit. I'm like,
You're available.
You're
But to be fair, I was scheduled to do this before the
I
quarantine.
know.
That's right.
That's true.
So I agreed to it. I didn't even agree to it out of desperation. So
We
Give
must
me
be doing
that
something
credit.
right then.
exactly.
Well, when we go back in the studio, you can come back with us.
Yes, I would love to.
Please
You're like,
do.
you're like, sure thing.
No, I will. We'll play Never Have I Ever with like actual vodka, but you don't have to have it. You just Roxy and I'll do it.
I'll be drinking by then. Don't worry. This
will drive her.
Yeah. This will drive me crazy to have 3 months in with my husband. I'll be drinking. Don't you worry.
Oh, it's okay. So, Sarah, tell everybody where they can see you, find you right now.
The best place.
Yes. So for tour dates that are obviously all up in the air, but will soon be rebooked and available, those are on sarahcolonna.com, COLONNA. And the links to my books are on there as well. And then I'm on Instagram at Sarah Colonna 1, the number 1, because someone got there before me. So
I'll help you with that. I can get your name back.
you can.
I don't know. I'm not that connected, but I'm connected in social. I'll help you out there. All of a
I
sudden,
kind of embrace it now. I'm like, now I'm Sarah Colonna number 1 and she's just Sarah Colonna. I'm like, whatever.
I know. I just joined TikTok. I don't know if you guys do TikTok, but someone has my name. And I'm like, bitch, you don't even have any like TikToks on there. So I'm going to get that back. But we need TikTok. Or are we too old to TikTok? I feel like I'm too old to TikTok.
I feel like I'm too old, but I downloaded the app, but I still haven't used it. And then I also just don't want to find out that it's too complicated for me because that'll just make me feel bad about myself.
It's really
It's
complicated.
true. It's true.
Well, you can find us on Women on Top.
On Top.
God, help me out. I've been doing this for like almost 2 years. I'm like, Women on Top
Women.
official on Instagram.
Yes. Yes. And Women on Top podcast on Facebook.
And I am Tammin Sursok.
And I am Roxy Manning.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for being with
Thank
us
you.
today. And we love you and we love your stand-up. We love you
Yes.
in so many ways. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
And we are women
On
on top.